I wouldn't put on men's apparel to exercise. Why would I put footwear on that hadn't considered my anatomy, my hormones, the way my body had changed? And that really was the beginning of, oh, well, what would we do if we designed a shoe specifically for women? And what kind of research would we want to do? And what kind of materials would we choose? And how would we test it? And it just snowballed from there.
Welcome to Unstoppable at Any Age. I'm Dr. Shawna Darou, naturopathic doctor, master's athlete, and founder of a global movement helping women train for their future health. This podcast exists for one reason: to expand what you believe is possible with age. Each week I sit down with women who are redefining the trajectory of their lives, athletes, scientists, founders, and leaders who are continuing to build strength, performance, and momentum in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond. Along the way, we explore the science of metabolic health, movement, and longevity, and the daily decisions that protect your brain, your body, and your future. Because how you move today determines how you live tomorrow. This is Unstoppable at Any Age. And today I'm joined by Lindsay Housman, founder and CEO of Hettas, a Canadian performance footwear brand designed specifically for women. Lindsay is challenging an industry that for decades has been built on male data. Through Hettas, she's bringing a different standard, one that actually reflects female biomechanics, changing bodies, and the reality of staying active across a woman's lifespan. In this conversation, we get into what's really happening with women's feet as we move through our 40s, 50s, and beyond, and why so many women start to struggle with pain or injury, and what it actually takes to keep moving with confidence. This is about more than shoes. It's about removing one of the barriers that pulls women out of sport and making it easier to stay in. Welcome, Lindsay. I'm so happy you're here with me today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Let's dive right in because a lot of the listeners probably haven't heard of your company yet. So tell me about Hettas and what led you to start it, first of all.
Okay, so Hettas is a female-specific performance athletic shoe brand. So right now we are developing, testing, creating women's performance running shoes. For decades, most athletic footwear has been researched, designed, and tested based on male anatomy, like healthcare and other pharmaceuticals and other things that are coming out that have been very male-centric. And so we have taken a female-centric approach to design, and it started, I guess, when I started having a lot of feet problems in my early to mid 40s and was having trouble finding footwear that would not hurt my feet. And through a colleague who's now our product partner, who's been in the athletic footwear industry for over 40 years and has 4 daughters and 2 granddaughters and a very active wife, I learned that the running shoes that I was wearing were likely made based on male anatomy. And it just blew my mind. Like, I wouldn't put on men's apparel to exercise. Why would I put footwear on that hadn't considered my anatomy, my hormones, the way my body had changed? And that really was the beginning of, oh, well, what would we do if we designed a shoe specifically for women? And what kind of research would we want to do? And what kind of materials would we choose? And how would we test it? And it just snowballed from there.
I love that so much because it is something that we don't really question.
No.
Especially with athletic shoes. I think with like fancy dress shoes and things like that. But with athletic shoes, of course, they're going to be different. And in the work that I do, the number of women who have to stop walking or running or exercising because of foot issues is astronomical.
Yes, it's been fascinating learning. I've learned a lot in the last few years about the rate of girls falling out of sport between the ages of 8 and 20 when they go through puberty. But I've recently started learning more about women over 40 and 50 falling out of sport again because of pain, injury, feet issues. And health and sport are just such a large component to longevity, and making sure we can stay healthy and live longer and have good balance and feet health is so important to all of those components.
100%. Yeah, that's where our visions are so aligned because
Yeah.
my ultimate mission is to keep women moving as well. And part of the mission of this podcast is to inspire, but also to educate. And this foot conversation is bigger than you would imagine. The number of women dealing with heel issues and plantar fasciitis and metatarsalgias
Tarsialgia,
and
yes, the
yes,
blanket forefoot pain covered under
exactly.
metatarsalgia. Yeah, I just actually made an appointment this morning with my podiatrist to follow up on an ultrasound that I had done in December because of metatarsalgia. And it's just something I've been living with since I started the company, and it hasn't fully resolved, and you just get used to it. It's there and it does prohibit activity. I haven't even tried running in the last 5 years just because of the repetitive motion, and tennis is one of my favorite sports. And it's like you have to pick. I'll go and do a long walk. And then when I choose to really put pressure on my feet, I'll choose tennis over running, but I can't choose both.
No, it's true. For me, it's heel issues and Achilles issues, also foot problems. And I've gotten to the point where I have to run every second day. I can't do back to back of
Yeah.
anything at this point and this age, which is actually a decent compromise. And it forces me to do the cross training and the strength training and the
Yes.
mobility work more diligently. And
Yes.
then the runs are they're very targeted rather
Yeah.
than just a random run here and there. But it is an interesting thing to have to think about, which I didn't need to think about until my late 40s.
No, it is. And I think the more we can educate and get information out there, and we can encourage even hopefully other brands to design female centric. The goal isn't for Hettas to be the only brand designing female centric footwear. If we raise awareness, hopefully it brings the other larger brands to the table to make changes in their practices as well, so that we can have better choices out there for women. And hopefully that will help the younger generations be able to make footwear choices and understand their feet health in a way that when they hit our age, hopefully they're not going through this to the same degree, or either with more education around it, that it's a
Mhm.
different experience.
No, I love thinking about it from a longevity perspective because, yes, girls drop out of sports incredibly frequently through puberty as their bodies change and their priorities change. And then I'm now competing in masters sports, and there's a big gap of not a lot of women in the 30s and 40s, meaning they're busy or they've got other
Yes.
priorities. And then we come back and go full force in our 50s and get
Yes.
injured.
Bodies are different. No, absolutely. Which is something you don't think of it mentally, because you're like, oh, I still feel the same that I
Hmm.
did when I was active in my 30s. But definitely the way you recover is different, the way your tendons and ligaments behave, even bone density becomes a conversation. And so there's so many things that women are need to think about because of hormonal fluctuations that men don't to the same degree at all. Like their hormonal path is much more linear, and ours has some steep drop-offs and valleys, and which
Yeah, and
is
like the musculoskeletal issues that women go through in perimenopause can be pretty profound. Feet are part of that, but also, hips are a common issue and
yes,
sacral issues
yes.
are really common as well. I remember in my mid to late 40s, when I was at work, I would have to mask the discomfort of getting out of my chair after sitting for too long and felt very hunched over for a minute or so, and my hips were
Yeah.
aching. I'm happy to say that on the other side of menopause, that actually doesn't happen anymore unless I've
Okay.
overdone a workout.
But when you're in the thick of it, like I'm
Right.
dealing with not slightly restricted shoulder, frozen shoulder in both shoulders. Now I have very
Mhm.
good range of motion and I've been on HRT, so I think that's helped, but I can't do goalpost like that. And
Right.
for someone that's a tennis player and you're serving, if I just reach the wrong way with my right arm, it's just a stabbing pain, and it'll
Mm.
resolve on the court within 2 minutes. Like it's crazy. Like you get this very intense pain because I've gone past the range of motion. And then it just, oh, okay, now I'm fine. I can go back to playing. It's
Wow.
so
Yeah, I had
bizarre.
two frozen shoulders in my 40s, so I don't wish it on anyone. They were really rough, the pain and the sleep disruption.
Mhm.
And with the first one, there wasn't much of a conversation about this. I didn't realize it
No.
was a hormonal shift. And
Yes.
early 40s, my periods were normal and regular. I had no idea it could be hormonal at the time.
I'm so glad that there's so much more information out there now and conversations like your podcast happening so that other women in their early 40s or late 30s thinking about what's going to happen to me in my 40s are feel more prepared going into it, and it's not so much a mystery about what happens.
No, I love having early conversations. I have quite a few patients who come late 30s, early 40s talking about being proactive for perimenopause.
That's fantastic.
Isn't it amazing? Like they're
Yeah.
often scared, but
Yeah.
it's okay. Like the proactive approach means that if we're, looking at their metabolic health and inflammation and whether they're exercising and again, starting early with building in more recovery and mobility work, hopefully we can prevent them from getting the bigger issues that maybe you or and I went through
Yeah.
to when we pushed a little bit too hard against the
Yeah.
hormones.
Yeah. Totally.
So I want to come back to the company again because I just like what's different in a women's running shoe. I'm very familiar with a lot of the performance shoes literally being unisex for spikes and racing shoes, which I was quite surprised by. So they're just a smaller version of a men's shoe. And I've gotten so injured from those shoes with
Yes.
racing. I've had stress fractures and heel injuries, and which again, I do think that the shoe was maybe just not aligned for my body and was a bit aggressive for what I was doing with it and not a lot of education.
It's so interesting. There's so many different components so a lot of companies do just from let's talk about R&D and testing. When companies test running shoes, if they do it mechanically, it's typically on a machine called an Instron machine. And until we started doing our research, there was no published female force profile.
Oh,
So when
wow.
we went to test our shoes mechanically, our head researcher, Dr. Chris Napier, who's also the physiotherapist to Team Canada's distance running team, called in an elite athlete to develop a female force profile so we could test our shoes. And of course, it's different than a men's force profile. We hit the ground with less force than a man, not surprising. But
Hmm.
what surprised me is that our ground contact time is quicker. So we
Oh.
actually don't keep our foot on the ground as long as a man does, which changes your pressure points in your feet
Mm.
and the way your gait works. So if you look just to that, most until recently, most shoes were tested 4-to-1 men to female. So even if your shoes are on the female side of the wall, chances are they weren't tested on a female body. Then you look at foams and plates and materials. Women generate a lot of heat and need a breathable shoe. And so when we were looking at what materials to use, we chose a TPU mesh, which at the time was not in the market. Now it's on a lot of super shoes. But what that TPU mesh does is allows all the heat out of the shoe. And the breathability is so much better for female bodies. And it also is lightweight, which helps with performance. Then you get into foot shape and anatomy. And that's really where the research has existed to date is anatomically, how does a woman's foot vary from a man's foot? And it's simple things like our ankle bones are lower, which is why we get chafing a lot of times around
Mm.
our ankle bones because the collar of the shoe is too high. Our instep is more rounded. And so we actually need the shoe to fit differently around the instep. So our shoe really fits like a skate and you can tighten and it really holds that instep in place so your foot isn't jostling back and forth. Our feet are more pie shaped than a man's foot. So they're not wider, but the ratio of the forefoot to the heel is different. So we need our heel cup to be narrower. And because of estrogen and its effects on the Achilles, we hypothesized that we wanted to make sure we had pressure off of the Achilles. Most shoes use a plastic heel cup. And what happens then if your foot's moving back and forth because the lacing structure doesn't hurt, you've got the ankle collar too high, so now you're getting chafing. A lot of women end up with holes in the back of their shoes where the fabric meets that plastic heel cup. And so what we did was use two nodes to hold the ankle in place without bothering the ankle bone, without touching the Achilles. So it holds the Achilles off the back of the shoe And then the way the lacing structure works, there's none of that back and forth. And so we've had a lot of positive response to both our lacing structure and our heel cup from a pain reduction comfort perspective. Women's big toes curl up slightly more than men's. And then just from a preference, we tend to keep our toenails longer. A lot of women have toes poke through their shoes. And so the material we chose is really strong. And then two, we adapted the height of the toe box so that there would be less toe bang against the top of the toe box for women in the shoes. Proud to say we have not had one toe poke through that I know of. We are coming out with two new shoes this year that will be a more traditional knit upper. So I'm going to be curious with the height of our toe box how that wears as we get into testing and get some early models in the market. But those are little things that we considered. Then you get into plate choice, and we wanted it to be performance. We had a hypothesis that carbon plates were too much impact on the body. And so we tested nylon and Pebax plates and chose Pebax for its elastic properties as well as its ability to let the forefoot move longitudinal sideways so that you're not forced into a specific gait pattern. And then the way we designed our plate was to have the impact go outside the foot. And when we tested our shoe against 5 super shoes in the market that are commonly used on race days, and they're all carbon plated, what was found in that research was that the force from the carbon plated super shoes travels up through the hips, where our shoe, the force stops mid calf. And so that's why we're hearing stories of reduced pain in knees and in hips. So it's been really interesting going through this journey, realizing there's not a lot of research out there, and then figuring out what research do we need to do to fill that gap and how do we validate our hypothesis.
Oh my goodness, you said so much there. I want to go back to it because as you were describing the issues with the shoes, I think I've experienced all of them where the heel goes up too high, it's too rough on the back of I have a bony heel and a short
Yes.
Achilles, and there's only certain shoes I can actually stand wearing. And then the sliding and the holes in the back and the lost toenails from banging on the end of the
Yes.
shoes.
And we all think it's normal. We did this focus group. We did 2 focus groups as part of our research with Simon Fraser University, who Dr. Chris Napier leads that all of our research out of that lab. And he did a elite focus group and a sub-elite focus group for more everyday running. And each woman, if you ask him what his biggest takeaway from that study was, is that every woman, no matter if they were an elite or a recreational runner, came to the focus group thinking that their experience was unique. And when they got in the focus groups and they started talking, they were like, oh my God, you had that too? That happened to you? Because they're used to people telling them that it's just their foot.
That's what I heard too. You have a really narrow heel
Yeah.
and and you got a short Achilles, and that's why you need to wear these certain shoes with a high heel drop and a low heel cup, and they're never perfect.
Yes.
Which is why I rotate through, I don't know, 3 different pairs in a week because each one of them feels bad after a certain amount of
Oh
time.
my gosh. How do I feel less bad today? Our goal is really if we can keep women more comfortable with less injury, then that's a win for all of us as we age.
Oh, for sure. In all sports. But I love that you're doing this for running because that's my jam.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the carbon plate and the different plate and the force going up just to the calf, because that's interesting to me. Do you still feel the same sort of snappiness with it?
Not
Doesn't cause a force that irritates your anatomy then?
when we tested the shoes, those super shoes range, but depending on the super shoe, from a 72% energy return up to some very high ends of 91% energy return. We fall in about the 73% category. Everyday runners typically fall in the sort of 65% category. So you're still going to get the snap, but you're not going to get the trampoline bounce, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. And so when we have runners who are looking for that snap, the tempo each of our shoes comes in different foam densities. So there's the same right now, the same style and three foam densities. And that foam density plate combination dictates the amount of the snap. So, for instance, in the Cruise, which is named the Cruise because it's cruisier, it has less snap. The foam is softer, but it's still a Pebax plated shoe. So there's still a firmness to it. I love the Cruise as a walking shoe. It is awesome. Long, slow runs. A lot of people who are training in carbon plated shoes, we have using the Cruise in their rotation. For people who don't want to train in a carbon plated shoe and might just use it for race day, is where the tempo has taken place in people's rotation for progression runs, for speed workouts, for fartleks, all of those different types of workouts and running. And then they may use it for a 5 to 10 kilometer shoe. And then some people have eliminated carbon plated shoes from their workouts, then tend to choose the tempo or the speed as a race day shoe. The speed is a very firm shoe. We've been talking about repositioning it lately because it's not just a speed workout shoe. It's for people who want that firmness, that maybe you have metatarsalgia or a stiff big toe that you need the support on.
Right.
That shoe, even though we've called it a racing shoe, it actually works for those people who go with their podiatrist prescription for a stiff rocker into the store and say, what do you have? And that's typically a Hoka. We're a solid alternative to that.
Okay, so there is still some of that snap and the zip that feels so fun when you're doing speed work.
Yes, definitely with the tempo. If you're looking for that snap and zip, it's the tempo or the speed. But just know that if you're going in the speed, it is a firm shoe. You're not going to get that cushy foam feel that you do in some of the super shoes that are using a Pebax foam in their shoe.
Yeah, I think for other women as well, but myself especially right now, like I'm needing to take a step back from the fun shoes because they keep hurting me.
Yes, and there's starting to be more information on that out there, and it's fascinating seeing the research progress. The other thing with those fun snappy shoes is a lot of them use Pebax as the foam. Now, I mentioned Hettas uses Pebax as the plate.
Right.
That's because Pebax foam degrades very quickly. It packs out quickly. And so one of the studies we're doing right now is a durability study on three different types of foam. It's blinded. All the women are wearing a shoe that looks identical. One has the Pebax foam, one has our foam, and one has a new foam on the market that we're exploring called ATPU. But if your foam is degrading at a faster rate, that also affects your injury potential if the shoe's not performing as intended. And then there's a sustainability impact because now you have to churn out of those shoes faster. So we want to better understand, how does this foam degrade and how does that compare to two other foams one that we're using and one that we're considering using to provide a more consistent, longer, stable ride with the shoe.
No, that's something that's really hard to gauge until you hurt yourself.
Yes,
And
yes,
especially with if you like, I have some race shoes that I just save for the week before race week and then put them on. So maybe I haven't worn it for 3 or 4 months and I put them on and it's very hard to tell because they still feel
yes,
pretty zippy, whether it's going to start hurting my forefoot as well.
exactly.
Yeah, but I love that there's research going in that direction. You told me before that your shoes last a really long time. Can you speak to that? Because that blew my mind.
Yeah, we again, hypothesis, we chose to use a outsole on the tempo and the speed that is not in market. And it's called CPU, which I'm going to get the acronym wrong, but it's a polyurethane bottom, not rubber. And it has double the abrasion resistance in testing in a research, like in a lab or factory setting of rubber. So we put rubber on the Cruise and then decided to try the CPU bottom on the tempo and the speed. And we knew that the polymer we were using in the foam did not pack out as quickly as Pebax. And we knew we'd chosen a resilient upper. What we did not expect was to get 1,000 and 1,900 kilometers out of the shoes, which was mind blowing. And it's not just the outsole, it's the foam, it's the material. The people who are reporting this type of wear to me are two elite runners. and one sub-elite runner. And it has just been very surprising, which has led us to do this durability study to better understand what component of it is the foam. And we can see on the outsole, like you can see where the wear is on the outsole, that there's very little wear. The uppers are intact outside of being dirty. Even the foam compression, from what you can see, they're not largely wrinkled. So it's
So say that
incredible.
number again. How many kilometers were they getting?
We have one individual who's a Pan Am Games athlete for Canada who repeatedly puts 1,600 kilometers on her shoes. And then one that is sub-elite, close to elite. She has put 1,900 kilometers on her shoes. We literally just replaced shoes we gave her in 2024. And they're not, as we say, Hettas is meant to be part of your rotation.
Yeah.
And so she's not running exclusively in Hettas, but she runs in them a lot. And it's one of those things that we're repeatedly hearing. There's another woman in Ontario who's one of our nano influencers on Instagram. And she's been a Hettas runner for both her marathons. And now she's training for an Ironman, and she gets 1,000+ kilometers out of her pairs. So it's just been very fascinating seeing the variation now. Allison runs a lot in winter. She lives in Guelph. She does a lot of sub-zero. So is that impacting her wear versus Julia and Kiana that are running in Vancouver? I'm not sure. And then we start seeing more information on reviews, or I spoke with a woman who's a big wave surfer. We gifted her a pair in 2024. She reached out in March 2026. Oh, I'm ready for my second pair now. These have lasted a really long time. And so it's fantastic because I think sustainability and creating less waste is very important. Where we get pushback is from the specialty retail stores who are expecting the customer to come in every 3 months. And they're not generating the same revenue off of us, even if it's for the right reason. For us, it's not about making the shoe less long. It's about introducing other models in the lineup where if a customer is enjoying our fit and they need a different type of shoe, say a junk mileage shoe, or Rachel Cliff, who's one of our team members, who's an elite Canadian runner, she really wanted a nod to a 70s racing flat that's unplated. So we have two shoes coming out that will fill different holes in the rotation and hopefully work just as well for the women who are loving our current shoe, and also give retailers an option to have different styles for people to cycle through versus just coming back for the tempo or the cruise.
Yeah, that's just incredible. And ultimately, obviously, that's what we're aiming for, is a shoe that lasts and that is not wasteful. I'm sometimes shocked how quickly I have to throw shoes out, and my
Yes.
mileage is not particularly high being an every other day runner.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
and if they have a carbon plate in it, you can't recycle them because of the
yes.
glue between the carbon and the foams. The bonus of a Pebax or a nylon plate is that bottom is recyclable. Now, uppers are more challenging to get in that lightweight durability with a recycled material. So we're working on that to hopefully have the whole shoe be able to be recycled. But durability was really important to me, and I'm beyond it exceeded my expectations where we landed.
That's just incredible because that's an astounding amount of mileage, especially for someone who's not a high mileage runner, in terms of how
Yeah.
long it would last. And yes, those of us who run regularly do have a rotation of shoes that we go through. So
Yes.
I agree with you that getting into the market with options would probably be the best strategy, so that the retailers have other offers when the customer comes back looking for something with a different kind of performance.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's go back to, let's say, a woman in her 40s or 50s who's experiencing foot pain, even though she's been active. What would you say to her?
But it's so normal and more common than you would think, that choosing footwear to support you during their phase of foot pain is really important, and that you can get back to a normal level of activity. I believe in practitioners. So, for my forefoot issue, I saw a podiatrist, I saw a chiropractor, an osteopath. I seeked out support to allow the nerve that was misbehaving have some relief so that I could continue, and then making sure that I had footwear that supported me when I was out on the tennis court or walking my dog for an hour so that I could enjoy it and not think about my foot at the time. There's a store owner that I met outside of Boston, and she was in her 50s, late 50s. I met her about 18 months ago, and she just confirmed the number of women that come into her store, particularly because she is over 40, and they come in and they say, I have this forefoot pain. What do I do? That this is so normal. And then you see it resolve after your hormones stabilize again. It was refreshing to hear that from someone that is serving people and interacting with customers, that she sees hundreds of women, that this is something that we're all dealing with to a certain extent and in different ways. Like my metatarsalgia would be different than someone else's metatarsalgia. They just use that blanket term to cover it. It doesn't mean that we have the same symptoms.
So, do you feel like the pain or the issue may have become less chronic if you were wearing proper footwear before?
Yes, I do. And it's not just running footwear, it's things like
Mm.
flip-flops. So I
Yes.
just don't, it's not just running shoes. But if I had known that this was going to be something I was at higher risk of, I would have definitely put more thought into what I was putting on my feet in all different areas of my life. The time that it flared really badly, I was wearing heavy onas on a beach and walking in the sand. And just
Right.
the way the flip flop pinched a nerve that was already aggravated just escalated it. And then I needed to really think about what I was putting on my feet while I was in this acute situation that lasted longer than I would have liked, months. But having the right shoes, I was able to go to Disney World with my kids 6 months later. I was terrified because I was like, how much walking Disney
Mm.
World is this? Over 25,000 steps a day. And I had been in such pain. I was like, am I actually going to be able to do this and enjoy my day? And having the right shoes, even though I was coming off of that acute pain, I was shocked. I think I had protos of Hettas at that point, and I was just like, I'm just going to do this. And it was able to work.
That's an incredible testament to the shoes, even with a prototype, that you were able to, like that soon after an acute injury, walk that amount of steps with support. And what makes me think that we should be having this conversation with women in their early 40s about being really careful with their footwear, just knowing that foot issues are so common through this decade. I feel
Yes.
like everyone's very well versed in frozen shoulders right now.
Yes.
We
Frozen
figured
shoulders
that out.
definitely out there. Yes.
Yes, but the feet are the next mission, and be cautious with the flip-flops, wear appropriate footwear, especially if you're walking. I hear the winter boots out here are a huge issue. When people switch to winter boots in the
It's
wintertime,
it's
they
awful.
that's when
It's
everything flares up because there's no support.
No, and you know what, so we spend a large chunk of time in Whistler in the winter, and I would dread putting on my winter boots
Mhm.
because I couldn't walk the dog in them. I would go from being able to go for walks to limping after like 30 minutes, 40 minutes limping home. It's winter boots are a huge issue, which I haven't figured out. We had a really low snow winter this year, so I was able to, which was bad for skiing, but good because I was able to wear my running shoes and have it be okay to run from the car or go for a walk around Whistler. But winter boots, ski boots, like I footwear in all aspects for tennis, you spend a lot of time on your forefoot. And when you have something like a metatarsalgia or a nerve flare up, if you're a forefoot striker running or you're a tennis player and you're constantly on that ball of your foot, finding the shoe that supports that. For me, before now, I'm playing in a pair of Hettas tennis shoes, which I love, and I can't wait till we can get them out in the world, probably 2 years away. But before that, I did a lot of trial in the air, and the only shoe I could wear was a New Balance. And then they changed the version and the ankle didn't fit my ankle collar. I was deep on the internet looking to stockpile this one shoe because I knew if I put on any other tennis shoe, my forefoot was going to flare, you
We've
know?
all been there stockpiling shoes.
But it's one of the things I want to make sure we're really careful of. We're looking at what is the next, updating the upper on the Alma to an updated design. The shoe was designed in 2022, it's 2026. Making sure that we are really careful and test it with the people that are tried and true fans. I do not want to bring a shoe out that, because we're on an updated version, destroys the original. There's nothing more frustrating than that. It's just shoes have really evolved in the last 4 years. I don't believe in updating shoes every year just for updating sake. So
Well,
hopefully we can
yours
get,
last so long, you don't
well,
need
you
to.
don't need to.
It would be redundant. You'd miss half the
Mhm.
market. So, do the shoes come with an insole in? Is that why it sounds like it has an orthotic almost by the way they perform in
So
terms of supporting the foot better?
each pair of shoes comes with two insoles. Now, insoles are typically a cost saving mechanism for shoe companies, and it's a place where they will turn to a very cheap material to put in the insole. We swung the other way. We spend dollars on our insoles, and we have two in each box, which serve different purposes. One of them is a supercritical foam insole, which is the type of foam that is in our midsole as well and has additional rebound properties, and it's thicker. So if you have a narrower foot, what it does is it adjusts the toe box so that you have less space. So it'll adjust your shoe size by about a quarter size. It
Hmm.
also, because it's angled, positions the Achilles slightly differently. So people use this thicker supercritical foam insole for a couple different reasons. The other insole is a processed PU. It's a thinner insole. Now I have double bunions on my forefoot and I have a very skinny heel and ankle. So I use the thinner insole because I need to create space for my bunions and make sure that I'm not pinching that area where I have metatarsalgia and my nerve that is unhappy. I've heard stories of women swapping them out depending on if they're running in the morning or the evening. I've heard stories of women using different insoles for different phases of Achilles injury because your Achilles sits at two different
Hmm.
spots depending on which insole you're using. I just recently heard of one woman who has two slightly different length legs who uses one insole in one foot shoe and the other insole in the other shoe. For me personally, I'm using that insole in my Hettas shoes, but what I did was took that thicker supercritical foam and I put it in my tennis shoes, which made a world of a difference. So even when I was using the New Balance running shoes before we made the Hettas ones, I would just put my Hettas supercritical foam insole into it. So one of the things we're looking at doing is selling insoles separately and perhaps adding a third insole that has a bit of arch support in it. These insoles, they're neutral. They do not replace an orthotic. So what I tell anyone who asks me is if you are using an orthotic in your shoe, you should absolutely continue to use that orthotic. It will fit. We have a lot of customers who are using orthotics in their shoes, but if you don't need an orthotic and you can use a neutral insole, we're sending two really high quality ones that are going to improve the comfort and fit of the shoe.
That's so great because, yeah, those are like the little pieces that make it difficult to get the shoe to fit right. And being somebody with a super narrow foot, I like a little room in the toe box though. So it is very tricky, like you, to find something that like actually keeps my heel in place, but gives my toes enough room. But maybe with that like elevated toe box, I wouldn't need that anymore. So I wouldn't be losing toenails.
Yes. What we
Marathon
always
training.
recommend is that so their postcard comes in the shoebox that explains both insoles. And what we do is just ask that if you can try both insoles, like they're there. And if you're not going to use, if you pick one over the other one might serve a purpose in another pair of shoes. They're both really high quality.
I just love this conversation. There are so many women hopefully listening who have been sidelined by foot issues or are dealing with pain and just living with it, or struggling to find shoes that fit their feet properly for both walking, running. So tell me, beyond the three shoes that you have right now, what's coming up next in the product line?
Yeah, so we have a shoe called the Canby, which I'm really excited about. It should launch this summer, potentially early fall. We're just seeing where it's going to fit. What we did was we heard from a lot of people that they would like a slightly wider toe box. So I said, okay, that's great. We will make a 2 millimeter wider last. Now, we're not going to make a wide of our Almas yet, but we will eventually. It costs a lot in tooling to do that. So we widened our toe box by 2 millimeters in this new shoe. We've been asked by a lot of people. The TPU mesh, the transparency of it is very polarizing. So we used a more traditional knit upper on this new shoe. And then we want people have asked for something softer than the current P-backs plate that we have. So we took the P-backs plate, we softened it, and then we punched holes in it. So in the forefoot. So you still get the stability. This was accidental. We did not intend to build a stability shoe, but our current shoe is very stable. And this is why people have ended up using it for high rocks and doing all sorts of things that I never thought people would do in a Hettas shoe, like hiking, because the heel stability is so strong. We kept that heel stability, but then punched holes in the forefoot, which then will make it much more softer with the foam. And we made the P-backs plate softer as well. So this is a shoe that Rachel on our team, Rachel Cliff, had Achilles injury for a number of years. It's why she missed the Olympics. And she is now training again after surgery. Her chiropractor asked us to cut the plate out of the front of our shoe for her. And so we did. And it was hugely successful. And she's been training in it. Now, it's hard to commercialize a shoe, commercialize meaning make it at scale for production with a cut plate because it can cut into the foam. So instead of cutting the plate off, what we did was soften the plate and cut these holes in it to provide the same effect and the same sort of motion as what Rachel had been running in. So the Canby was really inspired off of her injury recovery as well as feedback from our customers. And it's named after a bridge in Vancouver, which I let Rachel name the shoe. And it really is a bridge between a non-plated shoe and a plated shoe because of the softness and the flexibility in the plate. And the Canby Bridge is also an iconic bridge in a lot of Vancouver races. That one will drop sometime, I would guess August or September. And then we have another shoe also with Rachel's input where it's a 70s racing flat reborn into the 2020s. So it's using a brand new polymer that's starting to be used called ATPU, which has similar rebound properties to P-backs, but doesn't pack out as quickly, which is part of our durability study to
Right.
confirm. And it will be unplated and it will have a 6 millimeter drop. And it will be, if you go into a specialty run store, they'll probably sell it as an option against a Brooks Adrenaline or a New Balance 880. It'll be priced similarly. But for those people who are have a shoe rotation, doing track workouts, it's meant to be a track workout shoe. But it
Amazing.
also will serve a broader market. So I'm really excited because I think these two shoes are really going to open the market to people who maybe have thought were too firm or they don't like the transparency of the current shoe. And it opens up sort of the Canby is what Rachel would call her junk mileage shoe, and or someone else recovery walking, recovery running, walking, and then the Jericho, which is the 6 millimeter drop racing flat, really serves a broad market of who can use it. But true to our ethos, they are both highly technical running shoes. For a specialty run store, though, they're going to be able to sell them more easily against other shoes on the wall.
They are easy to compare in terms of the purpose and the function of them.
Yeah.
Okay, that's exciting. So there's more to choose from. Now I want one of everything
Yeah.
for my rotation. I'm very excited. What's
You.
your long-term vision for Hettas?
We look at sort of 2032 Olympics as our North Star. We would like to be big enough to be sponsoring an Olympic athlete. We'd love to have a female specific track spike that is someone is racing in. We really want the company to be setting the standard and the conversation around female performance footwear. We will get out of run. We won't always be run specific. Like I mentioned, I'm wearing a tennis shoe. The intent is to be across multiple sports. But we want to do it very intentionally and with research behind it. So that takes time. I'd love to redesign what sponsorship looks like for female athletes. We work with organizations like For All Mothers and Track Girls. We want to work with athletes to understand where are the gaps in current professional sport sponsorships and how can we help support Canadian and other female athletes where they're working 2 or 3 jobs or they get their contract gets terminated because they chose to have a baby. And there's a lot of things out there that does not make it conducive for women to compete in sports. And then I would like to set up programming and probably a foundation of some sort to keep girls in sport. And how do we continue to educate around the importance of that?
I love that long-term vision. My vision aligns, but more with older women of getting them back into sport and continuing for the rest of their lives. The conversations I've had, even in the past few weeks, have been incredible at what women are still doing in their 60s and 70s. And
It's unbelievable. And I didn't, that is
yeah,
also, it's so hard. We want to do so many things. We have 3 mission pillars: research, impact, and community. And the community and impact is where together is where really that keeping older women active and in sport. And it's part of what is so fantastic about For All Mothers, which is an organization that Alicia Montano founded in San Francisco, is about keeping moms active. And through that, like you said, that tough
mhm.
stage of the 30s and 40s. And they're actually coming into May. They do Mum Forward Movement Month in May. And so Hettas is one of the sponsors of that, of how can we support them in their mission to keep women active through motherhood so that we can then continue to still be active in our later 40s, 50s, et cetera.
Right. There's a huge gap. I see it in the master sports that I'm in right now. There aren't that many women late 30s, early 40s at all. We seem to come back late 40s, early 50s again,
Yeah.
but with different bodies. And it's hard on the body to go from like 0 to 100,
Yes. When I
which,
got back into tennis after a big break, it's hard to play tennis when you have twins below the age of 10. I developed a really bad tennis elbow for
right.
about a year and had to do a lot of rehab. But it's exactly like you're saying, like my body was much different than when I'd been playing tennis in my early 30s. And I just went out there like it was the same.
Yeah. And in some ways it is, right? Like your
Yes.
fitness is there and you remember what to do.
Hmm.
And yeah, I can't wait till you get some spikes designed because those are the ones that are blowing up my feet right now.
Yes.
But they're
Yes, I'm
super fun.
excited about
So,
that too.
what does unstoppable at any age mean to you?
Oh gosh. It really just means I can do what I want at any age. I don't have to think about it. I can put for me, my ski boots on, my tennis shoes on, and I'm just able to go out there and do it.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, and not let age be the factor that holds you
No,
back
no,
because
100%.
our bodies don't need to slow down. We've still got enormous capacity. We just have to take care of them a little bit
Yes.
better along the way. And proper footwear is a very important part of that. I'm so happy that you have this company. So if somebody is looking for your shoes, where would they find them?
Yes, we sell online at hettas.com. We sell in select retailers, currently a pretty small footprint, but it's available on the website under Fit Specialists. And we ship to both Canada and the US. We do a 90-day free trial. We want it to be risk-free. I understand the friction and fear around buying shoes online. So you buy them, we've got free returns, free exchanges. If you wear them for up to 90 days and you're not happy with them, you can return them. We'll refund you. So we really want to make this as easy as possible. On social, we are at WEAR underscore Hettas. And we pop up at a lot of events and run clubs and we post them on our social channel. So you can find out where we're going to be at with a demo fleet. And you can always email us if you're a run club and you want us to show up with our demo fleet. Please reach out. There's an email on the website that you can use, or you can DM us on Instagram. We love partnering with run clubs all over Canada and the US.
That's incredible. Thank you so much. And I will definitely be trying out the shoes, as I'm sure a lot of the listeners here will be. And thank you again for the informative conversation, because again, so many women are feeling like they're struggling alone with foot issues. And to recognize that this is such a common issue for us in our 40s, 50s, and beyond, and that there are some solutions and there's ongoing research and some products that are working really hard to be what we need to keep us
Yes.
active in sport for the long run. So again, thank you so much for this conversation. And I will post all of the links so you can find Lindsay and Hettas close to you as well.
Thank you. It's so important, the work that you're doing, and I'm just so excited to be able to participate in this. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thanks again. If this conversation expanded what you believe is possible, share it with somebody who needs to hear it. And if you haven't already, follow the podcast so you don't miss future episodes. This podcast is part of a global movement called Women Who Move, helping women train for their future health through daily movement. You can join us at drshawnadarou.com. Because strength isn't behind you, it's built through what you choose to do next. I'm Dr. Shawna Darou, and this is Unstoppable at Any Age.